Have you ever heard of a Japanese brand that mixes the classic with the exotic? Today I'm going to introduce you to Mitsuoka, a Japanese car manufacturer that's almost completely unknown. It will evoke a mix of love and hate in you, but it will make you think about how it's possible to completely transform a car. Today's video is for those of you who really love cars. Mitsuoka is the kind of manufacturer you've never heard of, but once you get to know it, you'll wonder how you didn't know about it before. This Japanese manufacturer, their models have very controversial looks. Some are sensational, others have somewhat questionable taste. In this video, you'll learn a bit about the history of Mitsuoka and also the most iconic vehicles of this brand. Man, I hope you like it, because this content is almost exclusive here on YouTube. Not even on international channels can you find much about Mitsuoka, so I made sure to bring it here for you. We are in Toyama, Japan. I'm sorry, Mitsuoka. A man who had already worked as a car salesman for Nissan was now running his own vehicle workshop, founded in 1968, when he was approached by an Italian to make repairs on his microcar. These vehicles had already been very successful in Europe and also in Japan, since there, the narrow streets and high fuel costs created a large market for compact and economical cars. When trying to find parts to repair this microcar, Mitsuoka had a lot of difficulty finding them, but upon closer inspection of the vehicle, he realized how simple they were. In Japan, for a long time, there have been kei cars, very small vehicles that had government incentives to be inexpensive. In fact, it was by producing kei cars that manufacturers like Mazda, Suzuki, and even Mitsuoka managed to grow. But the microcars in question were even simpler than the kei cars. Mitsuoka then looked at it and thought, why are they buying these vehicles from Italy? I can produce this type of car right here. And that's how, after some time designing, in 1982, he launched the Boo Boo Shuttle 50. The little car had 3 wheels, was powered by a 50cc engine, and reached a maximum of 65 kilometers per hour. Even though it was quite strange, it was very successful, as the legislation at the time required only a simple motorcycle license to drive them. It was so successful that soon other models, equally strange, were introduced to the manufacturer's portfolio. But things soon changed. In 1985, the Japanese government began requiring a regular driver's license to drive microcars. In other words, the advantage of being able to drive them with just a motorcycle license no longer existed. This change may have been made due to pressure from the large Japanese automakers. With almost no sales, Mitsuoka was forced to close its doors and traveled to Los Angeles to visit his brother. He, who was already passionate about American and European classics, especially English ones, was dazzled by the replicas of classic cars made in the United States. And he had the idea to enter the business and start producing replicas, but now in Japan. Back in his homeland, he relaunched the Boo Boo series, introducing the 505C, which would now be a replica of Stat, the SS Jaguar 100, however, much smaller. He also launched the classic SSK, which was derived from the Mercedes-Benz SSK and the 356, inspired by the Porsche 356A Speedster, except for the 505C, which used a 50cc engine. All the others used a Beetle engine and fiberglass bodies. In the 1990s, Mitsuoka decided it was time to launch their own models. And as eccentric as they may be, certainly, they have their qualities, combining retro inspiration with the most advanced engine technologies, fuel economy, safety, and efficiency. And if some models might seem strange to you, know that this was exactly Mitsuoka's goal, for their vehicles to be eccentric, to attract attention, and to stand out amidst the chaotic traffic of Japan. And now I will tell you about the main models of this iconic brand. 1990 Mitsuoka Le Seide, bringing a neoclassical style, much like the Excalibur model or the Zimmer itself. The vehicle weighed almost 1,400 kilo and was enormous. It featured good finishing and comfort items for the time. As for the engine, here comes a surprise. In fact, it was built on top of a Nissan Silvia S13. In this initial version, it featured a 1.8 Nissan engine, already well known, with a wide range of available parts. The first batch consisted of only 500 units, all of which were sold in 72 hours. And I don't even need to say that it wasn't cheap at all. Mitsuoka View. This is considered one of the brand's greatest successes, with over 12,000 units since it was launched in 1993. Inspired by the Jaguar, the Mark II had several versions based on various cars. Now take a look at this interior that resembles some vehicle. Nissan March indeed. It was built on the Nissan March. Although the latest versions are based on the car's design, its mechanics also came from these vehicles and had nothing disappointing, featuring models from 1.0 to 1.5 naturally aspirated. It became the darling of young wealthy Japanese women who wanted a compact car with more exclusivity. The model is still sold brand new today by Mitsuoka, Rockstar. This convertible, I would undoubtedly like to have it. It is basically a Mitsuoka Mazda MX-5. With an extended wheelbase, its inspiration was probably the Jaguar XK120. Like the other models that are still produced, the Roadster is handmade by craftsmen, and what it doesn't lack is comfort and refinement. Its mechanics come entirely from Mazda, initially featuring the same 2.0, with a 4-cylinder inline engine or a 1.5 engine. With Skyactiv technology for direct injection, delivering 130 HP and a 6-speed manual transmission, I think a model like this definitely deserves a stronger engine, right? Very few units are produced per year, and there is also a waiting list. Mitsuoka, Orochi. At the 2001 Tokyo Motor Show, Mitsuoka unveiled its Orochi concept, inspired by the Honda NSX. The design follows the AME, or Odai standard. The platform used was based on the Ferrari 512 TR Testarossa, although in the final project, the suspension that equipped the car was from the Honda NSX, and according to information, it has interchangeable parts. And what impresses the most is the engine, because when you look at it, you imagine at least a turbo V8 or something like that. But none of that. It was equipped with a 233 horsepower V6 and a 5-speed automatic transmission, exactly the same engine that equipped the Toyota Camry. This allowed it to go from 0 to 100 in 7 seconds. Nothing impressive, however, it was simple and reliable mechanically. Additionally, the interior was spacious and the finish was of excellent quality. Who tested it at the time? They claim it had excellent drivability and was very comfortable. Its goal wasn't really to be fast, but to attract attention with its beauty, although some magazines categorized it as the ugliest supercar in the world. As for taste, everyone has their own. I personally don't think so. I wouldn't call it ugly, but rather consider it exotic. Among special versions and everything else, the car ceased production in 2014. Mitsuoka Rockstar. This is one of the brand's models that attracts the most attention wherever it goes. The design is inspired by the Corvette C2 and is built on a Mazda MX-5 Miata of the ND generation. Its interior, except for the long Mitsuoka on the steering wheel, is exactly the same as the Mazda MX-5. The mechanics too. Mazda, it can be either a 2.0 with 182 HP or a 1.5 with 130 HP. But why would someone buy a Rockstar instead of a Mazda MX-5, given that the Rockstar is much more expensive? The answer is exclusivity. It is estimated that only 220 units were produced, of which only 20 left Japan. Mitsuoka Boji. This was the brand's first SUV, and let's be honest, they did a great job with the front. However, the rear is quite questionable. Inspired by the Chevy Blazer K5, the Budgie is built on a Toyota RAV4 platform, with which it also shares the entire interior and engines. Being a naturally aspirated 2.0 with 171 HP or a 2.5 hybrid, the car comes with more than 18 color options, and like the other models from the Japanese brand, also has a waiting list. And finally, the crown jewel, or what is considered one of Mitsuoka's greatest successes, the M55. Mitsuoka M55. The front already makes it clear that the model was inspired by the American muscle cars of the 70s, more specifically the Dodge Challenger, while the rear resembles the old Japanese coupes. The M55 was launched as a concept, but there was so much demand that they decided to go into production, and it is none other than a Honda Civic. Exactly, the engine is the 1.5 turbo from the Civic, as well as the entire interior, where Mitsuoka only placed its brand on the steering wheel. The transmission is a 6-speed manual. Only 100 units will be produced, and they are already all sold. Deliveries begin in May 2025, and it's possible that sales will reopen starting in 2026. The price is steep. It costs in Japan the same as a BMW X3. So, if we were to do a free conversion, bringing a Mitsuoka AKD to the garage would cost around 650 to 700,000 Ries. And at this point, you must be wondering, okay, but what about the manufacturers, Toyota, Nissan? Didn't they complain about them using the engines, the chassis, the bases of their vehicles? The answer to this question is simple. Not only did they not sue, but they even formed partnerships for maintenance. Some models that were made using Nissan, Mazda, and Toyota as a base could be serviced at the official dealerships of the manufacturers, especially since finding a Mitsuoka dealership is almost impossible. I researched a lot and did not find any information that they had problems with this, especially because let's agree that these are extremely niche products whose customers are willing to pay high prices for exclusivity. But the idea is very interesting. Imagine that they combine retrovisuals with all the current technology and safety, in addition to an extremely reliable mechanics. Whether you like the car's appearance or not, that's another discussion, but it's undeniable that their story deserved to be told. So were you already familiar with Mitsuoka? Did you enjoy getting to know this eccentric car manufacturer, so to speak? Cool, right? So don't forget to share this video with someone you usually talk to about cars that you also like. Thank you very much. See you next time.